people lose their life savings because the currency is destroyed. And it's the hard assets that come out the other end of that. Cryptos, a lot of people don't understand. They are hard assets, meaning that they are assets that can stand alone by themselves.
What's up, guys? Josh Lake here with the Pebbleton Post, joined today by Mr. Bix Weir from the Road to Ruta. And we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, which is cryptocurrency. And we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff around it, from the philosophy, the technology of it, and just more of the information that some newbies might think is important to understand before getting into investing with crypto. So before we get into all that, Bix, it's good to see you, man. How you doing today?
I am great. I'm excited. You haven't thought about this stuff in a long time. The kind of how I got into it and all that is, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun discussion.
I know you've been in this space a long time, and I know that the first crypto asset I ever received was a piece of Litecoin, and it was at the Litecoin conference pre-party that you were throwing in Las Vegas in 2019. And I attribute that to my red pill moment for this whole world, where I got to learn so much about not just cryptocurrency, but the financial markets and the whole web of things that come with it. And so I really got to, give my props to you for being one of the major people in my awakening process. So thank you for coming on today and talking to me, so that hopefully more people who are starting to wake up can find this information useful. And also people who already know a thing or two might learn a little bit more in just this conversation and the conversations to come. So, with that, can you just give a little background about, who you are in the cryptocurrency space and what you've done there and how long you've been in it, all that?
Sure. I have been in it since the beginning, since before Satoshi even. I was a gold bug and silver bug and fighting the Fed. And one of the most beautiful things that came out of cryptocurrencies is people learned about the Federal Reserve System and fiat money and the need for some kind of a limit on the amount of currency that gets created. So I was a big silver bug, gold bug back in the late 90s into the 2000s. I was writing for Bill Murphy and Gatta about the manipulation of gold and silver at the time. And I remember, because I learned how to fight about sound money advocacy in those days. I had 10 years under my belt, and then all of a sudden the Satoshi white paper comes out in late 2008, and I'm like, no, this is electronic money. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I still have some of those videos of me railing against cryptocurrency. And our good friend Cliff High, who I had talked to a couple times, gave me a call and he said, "Hey, Bix, sit yourself down. I'll explain what this thing, digital scarcity, is and how it could change the world. So before you go, spouting off, let's really take a deeper dive." So he led me down the rabbit hole and to really understand what digital scarcity is. Digital scarcity is something real, and it is something that the best example of it is Bitcoin. Bitcoin has 21 million coins, and there will only be 21 million coins forever. You can make any kind of offshoot you want of Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin. It's you'll have 21 million coins, and the last coin will be mined somewhere around 2130 something. Most people don't know. Most of the Bitcoin have already been mined because every 4 years it gets halved. So yeah, it's going to be like into the fractions and fractions of fractions of fractions by then. But it really does add to the digital scarcity factor. Anyone trying to create more Bitcoin, you can't do it. You got, I think, almost 20,000 maybe miners around the world who are stopping you from doing that. And no matter how big you are, if you're the biggest country in the world and you have all this money, you get all these computers solely focused to get control of Bitcoin, you're going to need 51% of Bitcoin. It would take more computing power than is on the planet today. But if you tried it, you get control of Bitcoin for the 10 or 15 minutes that you would have to control it, and then everybody would just fork Bitcoin off and say, "Hey, don't use that fork. All 2,000 of us are going over to this other fork, and you would have wasted your money." So it's a very sound way to securitize the blockchain of Bitcoin, of many cryptocurrencies. There's other great blockchains as well. But the way I got it, is cliff high. And finally, I changed my mind and I came out and said, hey, I was flat out wrong. And I've been an advocate of Bitcoin and the movement and all cryptocurrencies for that. I don't even own Bitcoin right now. I'm into various other cryptocurrencies that can do even more. It started probably the first Bitcoin I bought was in 2013. I think it was around $200 at the time or something. Wow. So crazy.
That's wild. I mean, it sounds like you've been in it longer than pretty much anyone I know who's been around the space. I've been, like I said, 2019 was when it really began for me to understand all this. And, in that time, you've seen a lot, the evolution of cryptocurrency from when you saw it in its infancy. I would still consider it in its infancy as a currency system today. But today we have wallets, we have exchanges, we have all this technology around it that didn't exist before. Before you had to, mine it. You had to be working your computer in order to get it to run a node. And that was how you were getting Bitcoin. And so nowadays, the people coming in, I'd say it's easier than ever to get started because all you need is an internet connection and somewhere to host a wallet. And you can start investing in cryptocurrency today, which, you couldn't say that 5 years ago, even maybe. So maybe 5 years ago. But, in that time for you, would you say that the growth, the development of the cryptocurrency space is a positive one, that it's going in the right direction?
It is. And we've hit the resistance of the regulators and of governments and of banks. It's always kind of been there in the background. It's been threatened in the background for so long. I mean, they've declared Bitcoin dead over 200 times now. Yeah. And the more you go through the ups and downs, the more you become desensitized to it. Because the first time I remember my first Bitcoin crash, Bitcoin went from $200 all the way up to like $1,100-$1,200, and then crashed down with the Mt. Gox takedown. That was the government taking us down. And I sold everything. I sold all my Bitcoin. I'm like, I look back today, I'm like, holy mackerel, what was I thinking? But you have to go through 2 or 3 of those before you really, what do they call them? Diamond hands.
Yeah.
You have to suffer through that pain. And, my best tell of whether we're at the top of one of the markets or the bottom is when like my friends and family will come to me and say, oh, you must feel bad. Are you okay? They call me up. Are you okay, Bix? Bitcoin's, your cryptos are down 95%. Are you okay? Are you okay? That's a great time to buy. As I found out in the past, I'm buying everything I can. And then when they come to you and say, hey, how do I get in Bitcoin? I always wanted to do it. And that's a great time to sell.
Yeah.
Those are my highs and lows. But yeah, there's so much that wasn't in place back then that is in place now. And then, 10 years from now, we're going to say, oh my God, how did you guys, deal in the Bitcoin world back then when the regulators were coming after you and the bankers were trying to crash everything and the criminality in the system? I don't know how you did it. So, although cryptos have come a long way, there's a long way to go. And you're going to look back and tell your kids what you had to live through, which is this time right here.
Yes, absolutely. And I would totally categorize this time in the crypto sphere as, the wild, wild west. It is kind of lots of gray area. There's lots of, danger. I mean, I would say danger in the sense that if you're not educated, if you're not following safety protocol, you could lose your crypto in a number of different ways. And, I could speak from experience. I've been scammed. I think everyone kind of goes through some sort of scamming or at least bumps up against it because it's very prevalent out there. There's a lot of people out there trying to steal your coins, steal your keys, steal your seed phrase, and there's just not enough information around it. And that's why people are vulnerable. Those hackers, those scammers know that. And so they're trying to take advantage of these people who are just trying to, get into this system for whatever reason they want. And so that's partly why we want to have these conversations here on this platform, so that we can help educate people to avoid those kind of situations. And, to also give them inspiration as to why it's important to hold cryptocurrency. And so I think you touched on it pretty well, but I'd like to, kind of unpack that a little bit further, which with the idea that, there's kind of, if you're paying attention, which most people aren't, but there's definitely some chaos going around in the fiat financial system right now. And with the way things are moving, with inflation, with the Fed moving, interest rates up and down, with the way that money's just been created pretty much uncontrolled behind a, central bank, Fed Reserve for decades, maybe a century now, over a century now. It's created a financial system that is really pitted against us. And so for me, that was what helped me realize that the cryptocurrency world was a way out of that. But I think for a lot of people who are still new to the space, or even in the space but haven't heard this information, don't really understand why it's such a good idea to maybe consider putting some of your wealth in hard assets that you can control yourself, like crypto. And none of this is financial advice. Just want to say that this is all just a conversation between two buds. We're just trying to, enjoy a little bit of this crypto world, but this is not financial advice. Don't do anything based on us. Do your own research. But anyway, back to the question. Bix, could you just elaborate a little bit on why is it so important to understand what's happening in the fiat system, what's happening with the dollar, and then maybe have considerations for assets outside of that, like crypto, for example?
Sure. I think one of the best ways to look at it is what's going on with the debt ceiling right now. They don't even talk about the actual debt. They talk about the debt ceiling. They don't talk about the budget anymore. They don't talk about balancing the budget anymore. They know it is an impossible thing to do. As the debt grows and grows, interest on the debt grows and grows. The easiest way out of this system is to hyperinflate the currency and shut it off. No country in the history has ever paid off their fiat debt. Fiat meaning declared by the government, unbacked fiat debt. And this is the same. The big difference now, there's two big differences. One, we're on a global unbacked fiat monetary system, which means every single country in the world has floating currencies made out of thin air. Every country, and when that sinks in, we've seen countries' currencies fail, like Germany, and back in the what was that, the 20s and 30s, and we've seen Zimbabwe in our lifetime, and Venezuela in our lifetime, and down in some South American countries. We've seen those currencies fail, and we can get an idea from that just how destructive it is, majorly destructive. People lose their life savings because the currency is destroyed. And it's the hard assets that come out the other end of that, meaning it could be land that you own. The land is still your land if you're lucky enough to survive the government. But gold and silver are still gold and silver. Cryptos, a lot of people don't understand. They are hard assets, meaning that they are assets that can stand alone by themselves. They don't need other people to believe in them. They just need one other person to believe in it, and believe in it for the right reasons. So let's say the US dollar goes down, is no longer accepted anywhere in the world, even on the streets, as kind of like Zimbabwe. The value of hard assets such as gold, such as silver, land, and your Bitcoin, which has limited supply, will go through the roof. It will stop being valued in the US dollar, just as like it's not valued in the Zimbabwe dollar, because the Zimbabwe dollar is useless. You get a wheelbarrow to buy a loaf of bread. And will we ever get to that point? I don't think so, because we're talking about the entire world. So it won't be exactly like that. What it'll be is a derivative problem starts at a big bank, and all of a sudden the banks shut all their doors. Every bank around the world, no ATMs work, no credit cards work, nothing works because one bank went down. It's a too big to fail bank is what they call it. Warren Buffett called it a weapon of mass financial destruction, the derivative market, because that's exactly what it is. If a big bank goes down, the trickle down effect on all the other banks, because they're all fractionally reserved, meaning they borrow 10 to 1 or they create 10 to 1 money for every deposit they have. They can create $9 to have $10 to spend, which it seems crazy that banks get to create money out of thin air, but the vast majority of money doesn't come from the Fed, doesn't come from the treasury of any country. It comes from the banks. The banks create that money. And I think it was Henry Ford, the guy who invented the production line for Ford, said that the minute that the population, the citizens of the United States, understand that it's the banks created the money out of thin air, the minute they understand that is the minute that banking ends.
I remember learning that.
Yeah.
When I discovered what rehypothecation was, when I discovered what fractional reserve lending was, it blew my mind that, if I go in and put $100 into the bank, they're going to lend it out for $1,000. And, that $1,000 then goes to 10 other people who all claim to have that same money. And then we all go to the bank. They only have $100 out of all the 1,000 that we, claim to have.
And then the deposits of that $1,000 gets created 10 times that too.
I remember learning all that, and it freaked me out, man. It freaked me out that if you go to the bank, you think you're programmed to believe that the bank is like the safest place to put your money.
And they're holding your money.
Yeah. Because they got the vaults, they have the guards, they have the insurance, it's a no-brainer, right? So yeah, I'm going to just give you all custodian duties of my hard-earned cash, and you're going to take care of it. And then when you learn all this, you start to see, oh, wait a sec, maybe I should not let someone else hold my own assets. Maybe I should hold my own assets and take care of it, because, I'm not going to rehypothecate it. I'm not going to spend it or lend it away. I'm not going to, put it into some, stock that is a risk and that could just crash anytime. And so, that's why I think one of the things that really you helped me understand is holding your assets in your own possession. And you can do that with, precious metal. You can do that with cryptocurrency. And I do see that cryptocurrency as a use case has so much more functionality, so much more of an ability to be useful and productive as peer-to-peer transactions. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I'd like to talk a little bit about, if you were someone who was just starting to get the hang of crypto, how do you do that? How do you start to get involved with the whole technology itself?
There's some videos out there that are really good. What most people do, and what I did, and most people who started in the early days, is went to YouTube and asked your questions in the search function. YouTube is an amazing resource. It's a library, and it's a historical library as well for cryptocurrency. You can find out every how-to video known to man on anything, any crypto question you have. A philosophical question about it, a technical question about it, how to buy it, how to store it, how to stake it, what cryptocurrencies are really currencies and which ones are tokens used for something else. You might buy this crypto you think is a cryptocurrency and in fact it's actually used in some kind of business function. You might buy one thinking, hey, this is really going to go up, and all of a sudden it goes to zero, and you're like, what happened? So there's absolutely risk for every 10 cryptos that I've bought in my lifetime. Probably 5 are no longer around. They're just gone. And we knew this from the beginning. We were screaming it from the beginning. Cliff High was even screaming it, even though he had a lot of recommendations that ended up going away because the government came in and shut down Mt. Gox, which basically ended the funding for everybody. 2 years of pain and suffering, and then it goes up again, and then the government comes in again. The latest one is FTX. The government allowed FTX to get that big. They allowed DeFi to get back big just to shut it down, just to destroy it. All the while, the big banks, the big money is accumulating the good cryptos behind the scenes. It is immoral, it is corrupt, it is everything, but that's the battle we're in.
Yeah.
The banks aren't going to bend over and say, go ahead, take control of everything. They're going to make it illegal. They're going to try to make it illegal to own cryptos before the end of the day and scare people off. The final scare will probably be that.
I totally agree with you that so much of the, I would say, the stigma against cryptocurrency comes from the media and the people who control the media, who are, the banks, which are trying to poo-poo the whole idea of cryptocurrency because they know it's the best tool we have to resist their power over us. And I like the term that Cliff High uses of anti-fragile, meaning that if, they've tried, the banks, the government, all the people who hold the powers of the central authority, they've tried to wipe out crypto. Like you said, tons and tons of times, and crypto still exists today, proving that it's stronger than these attacks. And that's what anti-fragile means to me, is that the more you attack it, the stronger it gets.
Yeah, because the attack vectors that they use are fixed. Every time Bitcoin gets attacked, whatever attacked it, that area is fixed. This time it's exchanges. Pretty soon, no one's going to go into an exchange, and that won't be a problem anymore. It'll all be decentralized exchanges. And
I want to talk about that a little bit too, because I know you were someone who got with Mountain Gox. We were just talking about that was an example of a centralized exchange that took a beating, and that the people who were invested, or at least using the exchange to house their currency, lost it, right? And that was for you. What was that learning experience like?
Well, in the Mt. Gox days, there was no other exchange on the planet for Bitcoin.